So today is my first day meeting all of you, but let's pretend that after this presentation, we head off to a party. So we walk in the glass doors, there's a dance floor, there's a bar. To our right, there's a stage that's reserved for live music. And then to our left, there is an array of options for seating. Now, we want to get acquainted with each other, so we make a beeline over to the seats. We're about 10 minutes into a very stimulating conversation when the DJ, who is 10 minutes late for his set, walks in the door. Now he goes up on stage, he plugs in his speaker, he gets his laptop situated, and before we know it, the room that was once very quiet and intimate is now deafening with dance music. So we still want to continue our conversation. So how might we go about that? We might lean in close to each other so we can hear. I might start talking a little bit louder. I might start over-pronunciating my words so you can read my lips. Or we might move over to a quiet corner in the room. Now, this is not just a story about a DJ who's on the verge of getting fired because he's showing up late too many times. This is an example of how our environment shapes our behavior. Our environment shapes our behavior. This is part of a framework to understand human behavior called the constraints-led approach, developed by a man named Carl Newell. As a basketball trainer, this has given me a whole new lens to look at things like motor learning and skill acquisition as it relates to me training my athletes with using implicit learning and self-organization and game transfer and a bunch of other stuff that I could nerd out for hours. But one of the biggest aha moments in my career so far has been realizing that that framework can apply to and optimize every single aspect of my life. So let's say that I tell you about the constraints-led approach. I don't know about you, but for me, when I hear the word constraint, I think of someone in a straitjacket. It sounds very restrictive. The reality of it is that by manipulating, which again kind of has a negative connotation to it, but by manipulating our environment, by setting constraints on ourselves, we potentially can become more creative, more productive. We can learn more, we can accomplish goals, potentially in less amount of time than it would have taken otherwise. So let's say that I have a goal of speaking more, just a little more eloquent, a little more sophisticated. I kind of want to explore different crevices of my personality. So one approach could be grinding it out for hours on end, looking at the dictionary. I've got my flashcards. And for some people in that example, that might make the most sense. It's just a matter of adding tools to the toolbox. They need vocabulary words. Another approach potentially could be setting a constraint for myself. So maybe for the next 4 weeks, every interaction I have with someone, I'm not allowed to cuss. Now, for some of us, that will be more of an adjustment than other people. But by setting that constraint, now I have to get my message across, but I have to go and explore different routes than I otherwise would. So maybe by setting that constraint, I start whipping out these vocabulary words that were sitting in my subconscious that I didn't even know were sitting there. But again, just because of the environment that I've created, it just naturally happens. Maybe you're a CEO of a company, and maybe it's the customer service industry, or you're just an employee wanting to level up the customer experience, the customer satisfaction. So maybe you set the constraint for your employees that every interaction you have with your customers, you have to ask them a question. Now, starting out, it may start pretty basic, depending on the industry. Did you find everything okay? Whatever it may be. As the weeks go on, maybe the months go on, it might start becoming, how are you doing today? Or, I really like that jacket, where did you get it at? And then over time, you start developing ideally genuine relationships with the customers, which in turn leaves them feeling warm and fuzzy inside, because you're asking them about themselves, so they get to talk about themselves, which everyone loves to do. You are showing interest in them, which on a human level, we all appreciate. And at the end of the day, you're almost just gamifying everything. It's a game. You have to ask a customer a question every time you interact. So now, from a business perspective, they feel warm and fuzzy. They'll probably circle back and give you more business. So now that's profit margins, that's customer satisfaction, all potentially without the hour-long meetings and presentations that employees might not even want to be at anyway. Maybe I'm public speaking and I feel like I rely very heavily on my hand motions to illustrate my point. And maybe I speak very monotone. So again, I could hours on end, YouTube videos, how to, inflect my voice, or I could set the constraint of hands in the pockets for the whole presentation, or hands behind the back. Now I just naturally start, maybe I explore different pockets of my voice, or maybe I start talking a little faster, or maybe I start talking a little slower. A constraint I have on myself today is 8 minutes to give this presentation. So I don't have enough time to talk about the nuances of the type of constraints and the strategy of what constraints to set based on the behavior that we're trying to achieve. But this has been an approach that has been extremely revolutionary to me. Another big aha moment was realizing that this isn't anything new. This idea of creating an environment and then adapting to that environment as humans, as animals. Adapting to our environment has been something that's been going on since the earth has been spinning. So it's nothing new, but there's some nuance to it. It has been extremely revolutionary to me in how I approach basketball training, how I approach my life, and I hope it can be the same for you. Thank you.